right, hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. And welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. I just want to back up for a moment and talk a little bit about, well, a lot of things, but primarily validation and confirmation. And the reason I'm being guided to talk about this is what I've been experiencing myself, and I've seen it this week in the collective. I had a friend of mine who really was so stressed out this week over really wanting validation, and they almost made themselves sick because they were so angry and so frustrated and so in such emotional turmoil over everything that's going on. So I want to just back up and say, in the beginning, when I first started expanding my consciousness, or being aware of my consciousness expanding, or me expanding out into my consciousness, however you want to look at it, it was really helpful for me to receive validation. And when I did, I felt like, whew, okay, I'm not crazy. I am seeing things that other people are seeing, and I'm having experiences and speaking light language, and I'm not the only one. But in the very beginning, when I didn't know who to go to, where to look, or understand that something more expansive was happening, or that I was tapping into this, there was a lot of resistance, and I didn't understand what that was, and I'd never experienced anything like what I am very comfortable with now. And I was looking for validation from my friends and from my family and my husband and coworkers at the time, and none of my friends or family or coworkers have ever gone through what I've gone through in the way that I have gone through it, nor did they see in their own reality structure what I was seeing in my reality structure. So I then thought, I'm going crazy. I was looking for validation outside of myself from somebody else who is not associated with me. Or shall I say, because this is not a judgment thing. It does not mean that if somebody else doesn't see galactics, or if somebody else doesn't speak light language, or if one person sees auras, they're more awake to somebody who doesn't. This isn't a labeling or level type of thing, because I know plenty of people who are very, very open, expansive, and in their heart, and just living their life in a very earthly experience, that don't know anything about galactics, and they might meet them and be like, yeah, that's cool, because they're in sheer space of neutrality, which to me is even more expansive than I am sometimes, because I get into this space of judging, is that real? How should I feel about this? I have a tendency over my lifetime in this earthly existence of being very analytical and logical. And that can be challenging to sometimes integrate the left and right brain, right? So the validation aspect of it was helpful for me from an egoic perspective, and also a human perspective, just to feel like I wasn't alone. Oh my goodness, there is somebody else out there that speaks light language. Oh, this person does see what I see, remember things that I remember. And then there becomes that, so validation can be very helpful, but the message that's coming through is there comes a point when we have to stop looking for it, because if we're constantly looking for validation, then we're constantly going to be looking for it. It's always going to be ahead of us or out there somewhere. And for that, for a lot of reasons, the guides have been sharing with me about this. And basically, are we looking outside of us to show us what's going on inside of us? And we may get the validation that what's going on inside of us is not right, is wrong, because our friends are telling us you're crazy. That's validation, if that makes sense from one perspective. They just validated to you, or to me, or whomever, that we're not seeing things on the same level or on the same plane. And if we have, that's who we're surrounding ourselves with, we're going to continuously and we're constantly asking the wrong person. And I say this with love, it's not a wrong or a right thing. But if you're asking a horse to talk about a pig, right? You're going to get the version of a horse. You're not going to get the perspective of the pig. And if you're asking the pig to talk about the horse, they may know nothing about the horse. And I'm using animals as an example because it's apples and oranges. Literally, it's not there. And so my guides are like, quit searching and asking these people who don't know, or they don't think they do, for validation about something that only you can know. So there comes this point where we are being invited to step into our mastery and not have to constantly be fed from an outside source things that are telling us if we're right or if we're wrong. And that's something else I want to talk about, because who is determining that? If you listen to somebody and they confirm for you what you've been hearing, that's confirmation from their story that you might be tapping into. So you might have this idea that, let's say, a particular political leader is wrong. And then you tap into the media, for example, who supports that belief and tells you you are correct. This political leader is wrong. And then you are then validated as, okay, I am right now. But that is based off of a belief system from something that may not have any foundation in reality. And that's just one very easy example. This also works in spirituality. This also works in any playing field that you want to get into. The other subject, and I could go on and on because it's so vast, is the addiction to need to be validated. Sometimes we get into this space where it feels really good for some. Oh, I'm being guided to talk a little bit about that. So let's say when we are getting information from our higher guidance system, and that information is coming through, we're plugging into a particular bandwidth. So it's important for us to tune into other light workers, communities, wherever it might be, that may also be tuning into that particular bandwidth. Because if you have a group that's plugging into a lower matrix or a lower bandwidth, and that's where you're getting your confirmation and validation from, then the only thing that's being validated is the ego. Or not even just the ego, the matrix and reality system that you're choosing to plug into. We all do that, right? Or we've done that before. So if you are on this where you're getting information from the universe and messages from a higher vibration, and then you listen to a way shower that you feel good listening to, and they mention some of the same words, or they mention some of the same things that they've been seeing in meditation, then that form of validation shares with you that you're plugging into the same bandwidth that they're plugging into. And that is cool from a human perspective, because then you feel like, oh, cool, I was seeing the same thing, so maybe I'm tapping into that as well. That doesn't necessarily mean that from that point forward, we constantly look to them for validation, confirmation. And I'm going to get back to the inner work in just a moment. So those are both examples of us looking to an outside source, and this is only if we're looking for it. Sometimes it just shows up and we go, oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that they were seeing the same things that I was seeing. So we might be both plugging into the Arcturian energy. That does not always mean that that particular way shower is only plugged into that bandwidth. So it's really important for us to recognize that everybody, unless that other way shower has done the work and they're already in a neutral perspective, there's always the chance that we could be plugged into something that is a little bit more dense or holds a certain frequency that isn't necessarily what another person might be tapping into. So that's where discernment comes in. So I always look at teachers, they have a lot of great messages, but they don't have all the answers. And most great teachers will say they don't have all the answers, right? Because it's infinite. So I might be seeing something that's different than what this other way shower is seeing, yet we might be seeing a lot of the same things. And that doesn't mean that I'm right or they're wrong in those things that we're not agreeing on. It just means that I've tapped into a different frequency or bandwidth than what they're tapping into. And that isn't necessarily, again, labeled as right or wrong. It's just different. And it gives us an opportunity to feel more expansive. And it does feel good from a human standpoint to see that. I have followed a lot of the other way showers and teachers in the sense of I tap into what they're sharing and I feel it and I go, oh, okay, that's what I've been seeing. That's cool. That's great confirmation. That tells me I'm on a certain track. Not necessarily right or wrong, a certain track. And if it feels expansive for me that feels right. Sometimes I tap into other way showers that I really respect and honor that doesn't feel right in that moment. And it may be that I'm not ready for that information. It may be that I'm not ever going to be ready for that information. And it might be that that information is charged from their own ego, or they might be in the process of tapping into a particular timeline that I've already processed, that I don't need to tap into to be a part of. There's so many places I could go with this message. The other thing is an addiction to validation. So we can get addicted to anything. We can get addicted to spiritual teachings. We can get addicted to a particular type of food, whatever it might be. But we can also get addicted to needing to be right. And oftentimes when we're starting to this journey, we may not feel like we may not feel that we can discern if it's true or if it isn't. And so then when another light worker says the same thing, we then discern, okay, that is true. But we have to remind ourselves, how does it feel in that moment, so that we can use our own discernment. So that way we aren't always relying on someone else outside of us to tell us if we're right or wrong. Again, non-judgment, I'm not trying to label that. We can become addicted to needing that confirmation. Okay, I'm confirmed. I can go on to my next message. Oh, well, they're seeing something different. How come I'm not seeing that? I must be doing something wrong, for example. Or it could be a deeper ego, and that's part of ego. Ego isn't just a bad or good thing. It isn't like ego is always like, I'm better than everybody. Ego is just separation. So any of those can be used to feed the ego, and the ego can be fed in any number of ways, and it isn't a bad thing. We use it as a tool to show us where we're at. So, and among other things. So if we're using our, I almost said discernment, but let's say we're using our validation for our discernment, that's still, we have to remember, where is that validation coming from? If it's an outside source, beautiful birds singing in the background, if it's an outside source and we're not paying attention to our feelings from within, then that discernment is somebody else's discernment. It isn't necessarily our own. So we have to use those together so that we can realize, are we getting this to feed the ego, or are we getting this because we're tapping into that same bandwidth? And it's the universe sharing with us, hey, just so you know, this is where you're at on this bandwidth. Let's expand into this more because it feels good, or maybe don't focus on this because it doesn't feel good. And we can get into that habitual pattern of needing to hear somebody else's message to keep us going. And this can be for anybody. So it's really important for us to go back inside and do the work. And I was guilty of this on many occasions, of getting sucked into needing to hear this particular lightworker's message because I was wondering if I was on the same track. And my guides were like, hello, ask yourself this. And you've already gotten the confirmation that you need. Why do you need more confirmation? Who is that? What is that feeding into? So that's something that I've really worked on, and I continue to work on, or be aware of, I could say. And why am I listening to this? How does it make me feel? Is it a distraction from my own inner work? So that's the other thing I wanted to talk about validation. Two last things is it distracting us from moving? Because sometimes we can get stuck in a validation cycle, and we're not actually tapping into our own creativity as much as we can, because we're looking for somebody else to guide us in the next step or the next direction to take. And that can be helpful depending on where we're at in our journey. We might be in that stage, and this isn't like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. We might be going through a huge creative expression, and then we might be guided to pay attention to this particular way shower for a little bit to show some other variations of an expansiveness that we might have missed along the way, or that we might be opening to in this now moment. So it's, again, taking things frame by frame in our movie and not hanging on to something that we need to be validated in, that we've already had confirmation about. Also recognizing that where that person that was giving us that confirmation is at may be in a different energy than where we are at now. And that's okay. I oscillate in and out of other teachers all the time, as do people with me. Sometimes, I'll get people that email me and say, hey, I haven't tuned in for a while. This is what I've been up to. That's cool. That's what it's all about. It's not about only honing in on one particular person, entity, place, or thing. This is an expansive experience. So last but not least is validation to prove that we're right or wrong. And this is happening with a lot of truthers I'm seeing. A lot of people, and I fell into this as well a little bit, where we are recognizing that certain things are being exposed. We are recognizing who is doing the exposing and who is, let's say, the nefarious person involved, or group, or entity, or however you want to label it. And then we're looking for, down the road, that to show up for us in our reality to prove that what we're seeing, feeling, and hearing is true. So then it doesn't show up in our reality, and we then say, oh, well, it must not have been true, or I must have been wrong, or we get angry because it's not provable. And this brings me back to what I said at the beginning of the video. Who are we looking for this proof from? Because if we're in the truther movement and we're looking for disclosure from the media, we're going to continue looking for disclosure from the media. We're looking to, again, and by the way, we're looking for a horse to give us information about a pig. And I love pigs and horses. I'm saying that it's two different things. It's apples and oranges. We're looking for an apple to tell us all about the orange. That's not necessarily going to show up for us in our reality in this now moment. So the message is stop looking, because that's creating more of the need. Got a lot of background noise, sorry. That's creating more of, it hasn't come yet. It hasn't shown up for us yet. We're searching outside of ourselves. We're projecting it into the future as if it hasn't already happened. We're looking for a 3D matrix or 4D matrix to give us proof that what we're seeing and hearing about is real. And then we're discrediting it if it doesn't. Not everybody. Some people know that it's real, but I've seen that happen a few times where people go, well, I haven't seen it on the news, it's probably not real. All right, well, again, are we using our discernment inside of us, our own reality structure and our own system to share with us if it is or not? And lastly, on that note, do we need validation? because, again, from an outside source, for us to continue to do what we need to do. Are we waiting for social media to tell us that we're right before we create what we came here to create? Do we need somebody to tell us that this person is guilty and we will not be happy until they get put behind bars? That says right there, we're projecting something in the future. We're waiting for a matrix to give us what we need to make us happy. And that is leaking energy. That is sending energy to a particular system that we're really wanting to collapse. That is projecting a frequency and taking and pulling our focus into another timeline. It is projecting us, creating a lot of things. So are we leaking our energy and our emotions, and are we allowing ourselves to let it go and get rid of the ego's need to be validated? And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's important. Because if we are in a place of, so the question came up, what if that particular person that you're looking to go behind bars, and this is, for example, I'm just using a very 3D version of truth. Or we'll say our brothers and sisters landing. Let's go galactic. We could use any of these truths that we know to be true, depending on which timeline we're on or density we're tapping into. And let's say we are not going to be happy until our Arcturian brothers and sisters land and show themselves. What we're doing in that space is we're sending energy to a projected and future timeline, and we're feeding into that, and we're not paying attention frame by frame to what we're creating in our movie now, in our own film, in our own foundation, in our own, So it's doing a lot of things. It's taking us out of the present moment. It's projecting us into someone else's movie script, because then if it's not showing up for you here and it's way over there, then we're missing the juice of this now moment and integrating that. Can we be happy with who we are in this now moment and what we are creating in the physical realm? And once we get into that space of compassion, forgiveness, integrity, truth, gratitude for what is here right now, and we work and operate from that as if what we're hoping for has already been achieved, we're going to continue hoping for, looking outside of ourselves for something to be attained that may already be happening, and we might be so focused and future tripping that we're not seeing it from one perspective. And that perspective also, pardon me, brings us back into, let's say it never happens. Have we spent all of our energy into something that isn't real right now? And I kind of got a little sidetracked there for a second, but let's say, for example, the focus is on somebody being punished for what they've done. But let's say in this process, we don't see what's going on behind the scenes. They've already been put in jail. And then the legal system says, you know what, we're going to make you do social services and help the world for the rest of your life. And so this is the agreement that we've made. And then that person comes out and reforms themselves and literally does see the good. Or let's say they come out, and I'm going to go backwards. It could happen. It could take one person on the media saying, I will not lie. And just do it on national TV. Tell the truth. And boom, all kinds of things could happen. The next person, the next person, the next person. It could take one politician saying, I've been involved in these nefarious things, these actions, and I'm here to stand in my truth. That could happen. But let's say behind the scenes it's already happening, and here we are waiting and hoping and searching and giving all of our energy to these particular reality systems where we could wake up one day and it might have already happened. We might go to sleep one night and the next day we might hear, guess what? The Arcturians landed last night, they gave us this gift, and they've gone back home. And we're like, we missed it? No, because they're within us. We're doing a lot. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but it comes back to getting into the heart. So if we're working from all of those words that I used a moment ago, there is that ability for us to create our reality from integrity, from compassion, from standing up for our brothers and sisters if somebody is being mistreated or neglected. Standing up for our animals, our animal brothers and sisters, Mother Earth. If people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing right in front of us, standing in our truth in the most neutral and harmonious way possible. That is what is, if we all just did that now, from this point forward, that changes everything. And all of those systems, which is already happening, fall apart around us. All I'm sharing is that comes back to ego. When we feel that changes are happening, and when we see compassion and we see good things happening, not on the news necessarily, because again, then we're looking to a lower frequency to tell us what they can't see. They can't project a higher frequency at us if they're not there yet. So why keep expecting something from something that isn't? That's like going to an empty well and expecting it to be full of water every time. And then you go back to the well with a bucket and you come back empty every time. Well, I really thought today it would be there. And I'm not going to get into the fact that we could create the water because we're making our reality. That's a whole other can of worms. But if we know that the well is empty and we are going to that well to look for sustenance and we don't get it, and then we're disappointed, that's ego. That's our human need to be proven right. And that's a lot like relationships. I see a lot of people in relationships. They're in an awful relationship with someone, for example. I guess I'm just going to go into ego just for a moment. They're in an awful relationship and they break up, or the person breaks up with them. And then all of a sudden this person goes and changes and they start a family, or they get a new girlfriend or boyfriend, or they're all of a sudden happy and go lucky, and here you are. What did I do wrong? It may not have anything to do with you. It may surely be that that person, you didn't work well together, and that person has all of a sudden shifted into the higher expression of who they are, and maybe they found a partner that assisted them in doing that, and the two of you assisted each other in exploring the shadow work that helped you realize who you are today. But bigger than that, it doesn't matter, because we forget you weren't happy in the relationship in the first place. So why would we be looking to be proven that we weren't happy by wishing that that other person isn't happy? I went off on a tangent, I recognize that. I could do 2 other videos on this, but again, I just started talking about ego and validation. Sometimes we look for us to validate that we are worthy of love, or that we are worthy of the truth, or that we need, the guidance, our higher guidance system is telling us to stop, unplug from all of that, unplug from that need for somebody else to give us approval, unplug for that need for somebody else to tell us we're right or wrong, unplug from that need of the television to tell us what our inner vision is. That television is not going to show us what's going on inside of us necessarily. So stop looking to things that aren't true for the truth. And this all comes back to us doing the inner work, and I'll kind of end on this note. So many of us have gotten so wrapped up in social media and the stories, and I did it. I did it for a little bit there too, and I was like, whoa, I got sucked in. Interesting. So we're being invited to remember the work. So I'm going through a huge transition right now. I will be not doing any sessions for the month of, well, I'm undecided, because I have been guided to unplug from everything, just to share my free videos, to share my free writing, to just be free and express, because that's what makes me happy right now. And I love doing sessions and working one-on-one, but I really have been guided to pay attention to what I need to do right now. And that is reconnect with Earth, honor my body, have fun with my writing, and offer everything for free right now, just from my heart, and have fun with it. And to regroup, because I'm going through a lot of integration right now. And sometimes when I work, and I'm sharing this, by the way, for all light workers out there, all healers and people that work in this, sometimes it's just okay to unplug. We don't have to look for, it feels good when we help others. It feels good when somebody comes back and says, thank you for helping me work through that. And I love doing that. It just is like so heart opening and so expansive, and I get to connect with so many beautiful souls. And I will continue to do that. But right now, I recognize that I really need to go all in to then express and just have fun right now doing that, and not, and just do the work, the inner work. And then as I process this, I share it with you guys through these videos and through my writing. I have tablets that I haven't posted, and my guides are like, Carrie, post it. And so I'm taking the time to do that and get caught up with me, so that when I come out after the solstice, I'm also going to get back into my ritual, deeper meditation, and just unplug from that particular arena, so that I can kind of get into understanding more of what I'm seeing and hearing and expanding into. And I'm going to share a lot of teachers with you guys that I recommend in some videos coming up. I'll be sharing them on I don't post a lot. I mean, I post a lot on Facebook, but I don't go on there. I will be taking down my comments page for now, because I won't be responding to them, and I don't want people to think that let me rephrase that. I'm not ever intentionally not looking at comments, but I've got a lot going on, and sometimes I'm aware that somebody might have posted a question and I didn't get to it till a month later. So I do that. I do look at the questions, and I do answer them to the best of my ability, whether it be through a video or through a comment back. But right now, I'm just being guided to unplug from all of that and honor where